And the other thing, I suppose, it's something that I borrow. It's not my own creation. I borrow this from Gurdjieff, and I think for the most part he's right. You know, you go to Costco sometimes, and you see that they have, I don't know, let's just say a sofa set. And you look to your right, and there are 5 boxes, only 5. Okay. Now, how many people walk into Costco on a daily basis? Let's just say 10,000. Of the 10,000, how many are going to be interested in sofas? Maybe 2. Of the 2, how many are going to buy, depending on how old their own sofas are, if they have the resources? And you realize they have those 5 sets of sofas for about 2, 3, 4, 5 months. Wisdom is very much like that. The world is like Costco. It has all these aisles, it has all these shelves. And just because we come to class and just throw the word wisdom around, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to go to the wisdom aisle, go to a particular shelf, and pick off the shelf the wisdom of Gurdjieff or the wisdom of Jesus or the wisdom of Krishnamurti. People are not like that. There are going to be specific people at a specific time in their life who become interested, only interested. Some go beyond interest, they actually want it. Some go beyond want, they actually need it. Of the many people who need perhaps wisdom, only maybe a handful have the resources. And of the handful of people who have the resources to purchase wisdom, only a couple will get to the end line. Of the 2 people who actually complete the journey, maybe 1, if they're lucky at all, will have the language and the capacity to process wisdom down and to hand it to the rest of us. You know, so it's not like things are out there, all of us in this class desire it. No. It's very much like everything else in life. It's like milk and chairs and tables and sofas. Some people are interested and some people are not. And again, it is also a piece of advertisement. This is an advertisement. And what is it selling me? Watch your tongue. Don't use profanities. Now, I have to be mindful, always aware, you know. And if you don't have anyone in your community who's advertising, selling you wisdom, 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 well, you're fine with data unless some event happens in your life, you know. I mean, people in Israel, people in Palestine, they're living a relatively comfortable life, and all of a sudden, you have a few bombs drop, and all of a sudden, you begin to think, what is mortality? What is justice? You know, you've been sitting home and being a goofball for the past like 10 years, and all of a sudden you ask these big questions. Why? Events happen. If you have no such events happen in your life, well, your desire for wisdom is not going to be as intense. It may not even exist. Allahu Akbar, Samuel.
Yeah, I think my question was, it was based on the last conversation on Tuesday on Cain and Abel, and how the spirit is usually smothered by the body. How can we, try to temper the body, or
you can't.
Not be so consumed by it?
You can't.
You can't?
No, you can't.
Okay, I'll order this.
You know, it's like me asking me, so what school should I go to, or can I go to, where all the teachers are inspiring and I'm going to be interested in all the subjects? Well, you can't. That's not going to happen. I may be wrong about this, but when you're young, you should just go out there and do things. You should be a really, really good sinner. Sinner in the sense that have dreams, pursue them, and then watch them crumble. Fall in love. Just wait, and then it just dies. Try to write a book. And like Kafka, perhaps in one of his stories, you're just sitting by the table, you have the first sentence, but you just get stuck on the first sentence. You go back to perfect the first sentence. Hello, Abi. Like, my name is Samuel. Then you go back and say, my father named me Samuel. It's a cultural name, Samuel. And you realize for the past like 10 years, you've been stuck on the first sentence. You know. Now, the trick, I think, is since you're young and you're new to life and you're going to experiment with a whole host of things, which for the most part you will eventually come to regret, what you should do on the side, if you have a support system, if you have people who are relatively intelligent and insightful, while you are sinning, while you're pursuing the dreams you have in life, begin to have a toolbox. Just in case something falls apart, you have a toolbox that you can open and fix. Don't wait till you're about 40 or 45, because that may be far too burdensome and difficult. See, from the age maybe 10 to about maybe 30 or 40, you just sin. From the age 40, you figure out why you have sinned and how you have sinned. You try to process. Then when you are 60, you have understood. Now you are insightful and wise. Now you can pass on your information. You know, the other thing, for example, let's just say there's a story about Abu Hassan al-Kharagani. You know, he lived in this 8th century in the Middle East. Very, very, very religious. And there comes a point when he is 17, he says, one day I wake up and I realize I am so attracted to the opposite person. You know, opposite person. Is that good? And, but he lives in a very religious culture, which means that you can't have a relationship without first being married. And so you have a culture that represses certain passions and says you can only release them if you take these steps. And what is the step? He gets married. If you have a culture such as that, you're not going to catch a disease. Okay? And just in case your relationship is a little dicey, the culture says, no, you can't separate. Who's going to take care of your kids? You suffer like a sage. You keep your mouth shut. You know that life is difficult. Just go on. Okay? And apparently this particular fellow, Abu Hassan al-Kharagani, had a really, really, really difficult marriage. To the extent that one day one of his students goes to his house, knocks on the door, and his wife opens. And yes, I'm looking for my teacher, Khaji Hassan al-Kharagani, Abu Hassan al-Kharagani. He's not home, get lost. So, oh my God, how could such a philosopher have such an evil wife? And so he's just thinking about this. How could such a wise man get married to such an evil woman? And as he's walking, he sees his teacher riding a lion. He's using a lion like a donkey. And he's amazed. How could a lion be tamed enough to carry this man on his back? And then he goes to him and says, Khaji Abu Hassan al-Kharagani, how is it that a lion is giving you a ride? He said, my wife is like 50 lions. If I wasn't able to survive my wife, this lion would never be tamed by me. Okay? Now, if you have a culture that's very, very conservative, that has profound religious components, that kind of like, for 1,000 years in the Western world, Catholicism just dominated every aspect of human life, we don't date. Nobody gets drunk and goes into the streets and shows off. No one gets high. Just the culture won't allow it. The culture won't even allow people like Eminem, Miley Cyrus, Snoop Dogg. None of those people are allowed. And so you realize what the culture advertises you is mostly religious advertisements, religious images. Okay? Now, since that is absent from us, and it's something we talked about yesterday, you need to be a child of your time. If you come from a different culture that has different set of moral codes, if you can, abide by them. But you live in America now, we have these relatives, they have 4 kids. The youngest is 5, the oldest is 15 or 16. Their parents wake them up, all of them, 3 in the morning. They go to the Eritrean church in Alameda until 5. Then they go to school. After school, they go back to church. Every month, they fast. Okay. Now, the 10-year-old has been given the certificate of priesthood. Now, you need to sit with these 5 kids or 4 kids and just have a conversation. These are not normal kids. In some ways, it's really bad. In some ways, it's really, really, really good. How the heck do you protect your kids in this culture, which is filled with trash? Now, is it an act of desperation on the parents' part? Maybe. Is it because they really believe? Maybe. But given what parents go through, you know, it's much better to protect your kids, even if it means you brainwash them and you have them think about Santa Claus every single day to protect them against everything else. That's fine.
But you're not protecting them.
Of course you are. What are you going to do?
Live in this society. They
Fine.
Get interwoven themselves with everybody else. They just have a lockup to where their real world works. They get shipped off to Alameda, go to the thing, get in this little room. They're told the world around them is sin. And
a couple of things. Couple of things.
When that kid turns 18, do you do them service favors by...
Okay. A couple of things. Do you have children? Okay, so that's the first part. That if you're not a parent, some of the concerns that usually parents have about their kids and their kids in relation to society, that is absent from you. So that particular conclusion that you have is limited minimus. You may be right, okay, but I'm not quite sure if that is what you would do for your own kids. Now, given that comes the next part.
And only because that's what my parents did with me. It was public school to get a multicultural experience rather than private school to get a private. That
was awful. Your parents did you a disservice. Well, they should have sent you to a private school. Look, are the kids eventually going to be exposed to unsavory, unpleasant things? Absolutely. Is it possible that they could fall victim to them? Definitely. Will having a strong belief set protect them? Possibly. Is it foolproof? No. And I think that's what all parents do. You know, I mean, that's what we do in relationships all the time. You know, I think if you really want to understand this stuff really, really, really well, you have to embody the stuff. Why would you want to protect kids since eventually they're going to fall victim? Well, do you have a child? No. What do you care for? If there is anything
I don't think that it's that eventually they'll fall victim. Is that they'll have a better chance of not falling victim.
Good, then that's all that matters.
I'm putting myself in that thing saying, how do I protect my kids? It's not by sequestering them from the prevailing place I live in. It's to engage with the place and to say these other people are flawed, that I'm flawed too. We're all going to sit in the same classroom together. Not I'm going to take my kids and sit in the classroom with all the kids who are flawed. It doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I just can't do it.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's like everything else. First you train for a number of years, you have a coach, then the coach says, okay, this is your first boxing match. Go out there and get your behind whooped. You know, they first get trained and they go out there. The idea of not being trained at all and then sending them out, you know. Anyways, let's move on. I don't want to get stuck on this because it goes nowhere. Yeah.
Well, I was just curious if those 4 kids are being properly prepared.
And nobody's prepared for anything, man. I mean, he's right in some ways. They're sheltered, but while being sheltered, they're given these beautiful sets of philosophy, you know, just in case the young girl at any point in her adult life desires to experience with some physical stuff, the image of God and all the teachings will all of a sudden, you know, a hurricane at her and she says, well, maybe not. I mean, that's great. Why would you want to have someone experience love and then a broken heart? You know, why would you want to do that? Just get them married and push them out. Yeah.
I feel like the value of like putting your children in a private school and then like a good athletic team or whatever is that they get to learn the value of community. Where it's like even if you do go out there in the real world and you experience people that maybe have invested in mold, you know that people do exist somewhere else. There is other communities that people do value ethics and moral. Not people are unmoralistic and unethical. They exist, but there's also other communities, and maybe throughout time they'll learn if they value morals, to more towards communities with morals, maybe stray away.
I guess the point is have a healthy set of biases, be prejudiced in a healthy way, be bigoted in a healthy way. You know, nothing wrong with that. So, what else? Samuel?
So, how do I go about defining these set of toolboxes for these tools? Which tool?
DeWalt.
What?
DeWalt. Look, when you go to Amazon, in its search engine, just type DeWalt combo set. And they'll give you like 20 sets of different tools for $5.99. It's usually $1,000. Now, the nice thing about DeWalt, they're like, you know, saws and circular saw, sawzall, hammer drill, all that stuff. Flashlight, batteries, chargers, bags. They last for like 50 years. I mean, you can go to Home Depot and get like a cheap saw for like $20. It'll last you for a day, you know. First, it depends on what are you making. Do you actually need DeWalt tools? Do you need to spend $500 just because you want to, like, I don't know, screw something in? I mean, because you may just need a $1 like flip screwdriver. That's all you may need, okay? And let's just say that in your community there is only Home Depot. You don't have internet, there is no Amazon that exists for you, and Home Depot only carries one brand of tool. I just call it Oro. That's $50. Let's say you actually have access to Amazon and you actually have checked out DeWalt, and it's a beautiful tool set, 10 of them for $600. Do you have the resources? You say no. Well, do you sell weed to make money? Maybe you can save some of that to buy tools. Do you have a job? Do you work at In-N-Out? Can you borrow money from your parents? Without resources, you know, when you say, I want to get a set of tools, i.e. wisdom, the question is, you want wisdom for what? And it's something we've talked about, which is wisdom has two branches. One is abstract, okay? It's good to send your kids to a public school because there is diversity, and then they'll be exposed to all these aisles and all these shelves of ideas. It's a great idea, okay? Then your kid comes home and begins to use bad language and say, oh my God, well, maybe I don't like diversity as much, okay? Now, that experience makes your wisdom very, very practical. Now, you have this revision. Maybe I should send them to private school, okay? Now they come home with a different set of language, some of which you will like, some of which you won't like. But at least, you know, you say, well, you know, private school is much more valuable. And the point I'm trying to make is when you're a young adult, the sort of wisdom you will have for the most part is abstract. It's not going to be tested. And if it is even going to be tested, it's not going to be tested rigorously. You know, it's different when you write an essay when you're in first grade and then you have your teacher read it versus when you're doing your PhD, you know, because then you have a different set of people, different set of intelligence looking at the essay saying, okay, well, this is not a PhD essay, you know, so F for you. So good teachers, I think, it's a story that we have in the Middle East, is some guy goes to Shebli, some guy in Iraq, and says, where are you going? Some guy goes to him and says, I want wisdom. I'm in love with wisdom. And this old man looks at this young kid and says, you have a woman? No. Have you ever fallen in love with a woman? No. You don't need to fall in love with wisdom just yet. Go in the world. Find the woman. Fall in love with that woman. See what that love does to you, physically, psychologically, emotionally. Okay? Experience a tornado of love, physical love. If you can survive it healthily, then come back to me. Then I know that you'll be ready for this other kind of love. And that's what good teachers do. Just because you say, I want wisdom, well, who the hell are you to want anything? It's like saying, Amir, can I come visit you in your office? Why? You want my time for what? Forgive me, it's not about you. I'm just getting angry because I'm beginning to... There you go. Yeah.
Let's simple the question. If we go to school, we're learning that is the knowledge or wisdom. I think it's now the education. You go to go to the school, learning, and teach the things, knowledge or wisdom.
Well, next time you go to Kaiser, tell your doctor you have this issue, and the first thing he does or she does is Google your symptoms. Google your issue and say, yes, according to Dr. Google, you know, you should do A, B, C, D. And everything is like that these days. So you have to be disappointed enough times to begin to quest for something different. I mean, you have to go out with 20-year-olds, you know, for a few times. Maybe many years, to come to realize maybe 20-year-olds are far too immature for you. Maybe you should try 30-year-olds. And then realize they suck as well. Maybe you should try 40, 50, 60-year-olds. And then you say, you know what, I'm just going to go out with dead people. They're the most mature. Anyone else? Yeah.
Do you think that finding wisdom is somewhat accidental? Like you're searching for something and you're searching, not that it's dumb luck per se, but that in your pursuit for knowledge or for being a better person or more complete, that you, in that pursuit, if it's confident and intentional, that eventually you come to a point that you realize that you've achieved what you want and it doesn't really matter anymore. Maybe that happened several times on the way to wisdom.
There is something that Rumi had mentioned around the 11th, 12th century, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but he argues that there are those who run after wisdom and get nowhere. And there are those who sit and wash dishes and all of a sudden everything is given to them. How, why, we don't really know. We don't really know, as the Greeks would say, how Hephaestus comes down. This is like the blacksmith of the gods. And he is torturous because, you know, he has this welding machine and he welds wisdom to your soul. And it's very painful and burdensome. How you get lucky to have Hephaestus come down, and how you get lucky to have Hephaestus turn on his welding machine and weld wisdom to your soul, I don't know how it happens or why it happens. I don't know how someone runs his entire life or her entire life looking for wisdom, and in the end they have nothing. And someone who goes very slow, you know, and gets everything, you know. So that part of it, how one gets wisdom, how one is qualified for that particular journey, it's a mystery. I don't really know. I'm not qualified to talk about that. The other thing is, it depends also how you wish to define wisdom. The tradition from which I come, The wisdom that you gain by having an out-of-body experience, by having a dream of Jesus Christ, that's the lowest, the cheapest, the most useless kinds of wisdom you could ever have. Because it doesn't serve you in life. You kind of just go around having this inflated ego, bullying people around. Okay. The other, which is really the branch of really, really, really good teachers, is that they don't really have dreams, they don't have out-of-body experiences. What they do have is they understand life really, really well. They're able to kind of look at something, process it, digest it, and then the outcome is this beautiful creation or production of nuggets of practical wisdom that helps ordinary people where they are. And, you know, the thing with Jesus is, no one's going to go out there and look for the kingdom of God within. That's just ridiculous, man. People are busy. People are being butchered by the Romans. Why do you come here with your hippie philosophy of life? You know? Good practical teacher is someone like Moses. He understands difficulties. He understands the loss of identity. He understands being deceived. He understands that at the end of the day, no matter who you are, what you have, if you are on a quest to figure out who you really are, the desert is going to be your home for a long, long time. And scorpions are going to be your friends for a long, long time. You will be alone. And in the desert, you're not going to be hungry for exotic nourishments. Okay? And then when you come back, you give them the most basic things. Honor thy parents. Don't steal. Don't lie. Don't cheat. Of course, every single one of those commandments, the last 6, have their own wonderful footnotes. That, of course, he doesn't tell us. But nevertheless, they have their footnotes. You know, so there are some people who have great experiences. And they have tamed the power that those experiences give them. So they remain, for the most part, invisible. You know, they don't bully the rest of us. They don't make us feel bad about who and what we are. Some of them speak in a language that we can understand and apply. And some of them are just goofballs, you know. I mean, people like Sadhguru, or there was this young Indian chess player, I think he's number 2 or 3 currently in the world. I forget his name because, I mean, he's just such a difficult name to pronounce, so I just gave up. He's this, I think he's 16. And so he's sitting as a crowd, Sadhguru, who is this new Indian teacher in India who's gained a good amount of popularity. Is he for real?
Yeah.
Like, is he a mannequin?
No, I mean, like, what he's teaching, because I've, like, watched and listened to it.
The only thing that's good about him is his turban. When he laughs, he's got this big belly. And just the way that his belly moves when he laughs is so beautiful. I mean, it's like sitting and saying, my God, how's that belly move like that? It's beautiful. And his beard. And so this kid, is he real? Look, different teachers work for different people. You know, the only thing I can appreciate about him is that he wears clean clothes and he doesn't smell like chicken tikka masala every time. So this 16-year-old goes to him and says, well, you know, sometimes when I'm playing chess, it's so stressful. Is there a way I could lessen my stress? And he looks at this kid and says, what is stress but madness? What the hell sort of a thing is that to say to like a 16-year-old who wants to be the #1 chess player in the world? Of course you're going to be under stress. It's almost part of the game. Chess. If you want to be really good, you got to predict like 40 moves ahead. Not just yourself, your opponent. That's a lot of stress. And when you practice, after a while, you know, things just kind of ease up a little bit and you get calmer as the days go by. But to say, well, just focus on the first move. I can't just focus on the first move, you idiot. Because I don't want to lose. You just need someone to just slap him a little. You know. But he's a nice looking man. Just in case. We have time for a quickie, even though we're out of time. Anyone? Allahu Akbar. What is it with you today, man? Go ahead.
Dude, I have a metaphor that kind of came in my head. It was, sin is missing the mark. So can we say, like, wisdom is attempting to, like, aim for the mark and miss, calibrate that recalibration that you learned from missing to try to aim better? Is that kind of partially wisdom? I don't know.
If you ask any one of us in this room, we'll tell you that we've had close to maybe 50 companions. Even if you're 18 in this classroom, we've had like 20. And what exactly have you learned according to recalibrate? Well, first you're addicted to a certain type of personality, and that's the only personality type you will ever go out with. And that's because you're addicted, and that's because to some extent there's a self-image you have of your own image that you want to protect, satisfy, and nourish. And so you will only go with certain types of people unless you come to this crossroad where you say, I'm just tired. Now that's when you kind of begin to make some changes and adjustments. Until then, it's just Groundhog Day. You will repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. I think what you're talking about is at what stage does someone wake up from anything to say, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to change the course of my life, or I want to change the way I make my decisions. I don't want to make decisions based on my feelings, or I don't want to make decisions basically my rationality is this instrument where I'm like just a tax collector. You know, once in a while you say, I want to just go out there and get dirty. I want to fall in love and whatever. And it depends how tired you've become of certain things about your own life that no longer work. Nothing is easy, man. Wisdom is like a dish. You know, to this day, I mean, I've tried making chicken tikka masala since I was 11 when I lived in India. Every time I even make it now, I can't even eat it. It's disgusting.
What are you doing wrong?
Everything. Listen, it's been a nice day. Thank you. I hope you guys have a nice weekend. Take good care. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a good dentist for him?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Professor.
Bye. What is your name?
Terrence.
Terrence? Oh, it's a beautiful name.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Hey, Noah.
That's a question. Like every assignment that I failed to turn in,
Turn them in.
Like, okay. You'll,
Yeah, turn them in.
are they like locked, like in the website?
The submission button is locked, but you can email them to me.
Okay.
Okay?